without further ado, we will make a start. Now, as mentioned, the session is being recorded. We will be sending a copy of this out to everybody once today's webinar is complete. We are also going to send out the slides that I share as well. So again, you'll be able to review the video and the key points of the session will all be covered in the presentation that I send out to you afterwards. A very big warm welcome from me to begin with. I am Simon. I am one of the Pobble co-founders, a former primary school teacher and deputy head here in Harrogate, North Yorkshire in England. It's about 7 a.m. in the morning here, which means that my two young children are about to arise from bed. I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So if you do hear any background noise at any point, I do apologise. They will be making their way down the stairs for breakfast to return to school. But my journey began about 8.5 years ago now. I was teaching a group of 9 and 10-year-olds. Writing was a huge area of focus in my school. And I was always looking at ways of really just trying to make writing more exciting for them. Now, the beginning of my Pobble journey was to begin turning the children into published authors. And I know you're all registered users on the site now, and you will have seen some of the resources that we are about to discuss today. But the really special part for my class was turning their writing into, turning their work into becoming a published author and having visits from all around the world. And I remember vividly one of the early stories from one of my children that received a comment on his work from a head teacher in Australia. He thought it was absolutely amazing. You know, we had comments from children in the class, but this fact that we had this worldwide audience looking at our work truly was magnificent for those children. And really for the last 8 years, Pobble has become a place where you can find resources to motivate children to write. And I know many of you will be fans of Pobble 365. It's become a place where children can log on themselves and they can look at lessons, they can leave comments, they can view work from other children. We continue, of course, to publish work from all across the world. And, you know, it's amazing today to have over 500 people from Australia and New Zealand signing on to a webinar. And then most recently, we've added an online moderation tool. Obviously, with the challenges of COVID, traveling to different schools to look at writing and to moderate has become obviously impossible almost for schools. So here in the UK, we've been piloting a moderation project, which again, I'm happy to briefly talk to you about later as well. Now, what we found having run lots of these webinars over the last 12 months is I will always tell hopefully a really nice story about Pobble, and certainly as the session goes on, I will demo some of the aspects of Pobble to you. But actually just hearing firsthand from teachers and school leaders that have been using Pobble effectively has been really powerful for the users that have signed up to our sessions. So today I'm really proud to have Chelsea Hughes joining us. I will hand over the screen to her in a moment. Chelsea has worked with Pobble now for about 3 years. She uses Pobble with her children. I've been very fortunate to visit her international school and see how effectively she's used some of the tools she will talk to you about today. And then moving on from that, we will move on to Rachel Wilding, a principal at a school in Dubai. Again, been working with Pobble now, I believe this might be the 3rd year of working with us. And again, Rachel's taken some of the things that we've shared, they've adapted them within their own school, again, hopefully to see a huge impact on their children's work as well. And I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing from Rachel in a moment. Now, before I hand over to Chelsea, I just want to share very quickly a quick graphic, which if you've logged onto the Pobble platform recently, you will have seen. We always try to think about the journey to becoming a good writer. Pobble is not a scheme of work, and that's one of the reasons why so many international teachers sign up to our platform. We try to think about the things that are going to impact on children, while also trying to think about the things that will help you as a busy classroom teacher and school leader. And at every point of the writing journey, whether that be finding something to write about, whether that's providing them with some resources to help them along the way, whether that's facilitating feedback from their peers within their classroom or through remote learning, of course, as many of you are experiencing at the moment, all the way through to providing that audience and purpose of where that writing goes. And you'll hear as Rachel and Chelsea go through their presentations today, lots of the resources that they will discuss will be matched to that journey. So everything from, what could you write about, all the way through to the excitement of becoming that published author. So again, do reference back to that graphic on the homepage. It's a really nice reminder of all the different ways that Pobble can support your journey. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to ask Chelsea to turn on her video, if that's okay, Chelsea.
Yep, here I am.
There we go. And I will turn my video up and I will hand you over to Chelsea, who I'm sure will introduce herself, tell you a little bit about her school, and we'll share some really exciting ideas with you. Thanks, Chelsea.
No problem. Okay, so my name is Chelsea. I work in an international school in Qatar. I'm also an international student myself, so I was brought up in Qatar, originally from Scotland. But what we find, and when we're working in international schools, is that we have a predominantly EAL-based children, so English as a additional language. Writing is really, really important for us, whether it's the writing, the speaking, or the performing, just to get that vocabulary and make sure that English is really prominent in their learning. So I'm going to go through a few things that have worked in my class, and how Pobble has been implemented throughout the school. So I've put a Bill Gates quote up here, and it says, "I choose a lazy person to do a hard job, because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it." And no means am I saying that we are lazy people, but what I do find from this quote is that we do really need to be work smart. And that means making sure that our planning is done, and we have so many things to do as a teacher, and you find that you lose hours of the day, and really we need to be focusing on the teaching itself. So that's where Pobble really comes in. Pobble helps us to plan easier, to use lessons, to have lessons already there, to have stimulus there, and for moderation and assessment as well. So that way we can be lazy people by using Pobble to help us with the learning. Now, the first thing, as we probably most of us have seen, is Pobble 365. Pobble 365 is such a good resource tool. It helps us, you can click on it. It has lots of different stimulus that you can choose. You don't have to have the one for that day. You can also pick sentence starters, sentence challenges, there's questions. So what I would usually do in the morning is I would make sure it was a regular practice, but I would have my Pobble 365 on the board. So as the children are walking in the morning, they're not sitting around wondering what to do. I can type Pobble 365 straight in and have it up on the board. So one of the things, especially with, I'm a year 4 teacher at the moment, and what we found was that using things like the sentence challenges, we put them up on the board. It has a few sentences, and I'm able to teach a little bit of grammar every single morning. And doing that regularly really helps with improving their language. So, for example, instead of putting a PowerPoint up on the board and saying, today we're doing adjectives, this is what an adjective is, and having loads of slides where the children are starting to drift off, we have one of the Pobble sentences up on the board. And I say, okay, so yesterday we learned about nouns. Today we're going to do adjectives. Teach them a few adjectives, and then say, okay, can you find the nouns in this sentence? Now let's include the adjectives. So we would increase that every single day. So if we've done the adjectives the first day, maybe the next week we'll work on the verbs, and then we're going to work on the adverbs, and then we're going to work on the fronted adverbials, and then we'll work on the relative clauses. So every week we're increasing what we're adding to those 6 sentences. So there's something on Pobble 365 called 6 sentence, where it's just a sentence, and we call it a boring sentence, and it's the children's job to then change that boring sentence and make it more interesting. So when my children come in at the beginning of the year, they're just going to be adding adjectives or verbs, and then by the end of the year they're actually able to change 2 sentences and turn them into long paragraphs. So I've just given you an example here. This was the picture that I put up on the board. There was a paragraph here, but it was quite a simple one. Mr. Obadiah was a tall man. He wore a jacket and a shirt. And then my child was able to change it just while all the other children were coming into school, putting their bags away, putting their pencil cases out, he was able to then up-level that sentence by saying, Mr. Obadiah was a presentable magician who would change people's future. So already you can see they put a relative clause in. He's up-leveled that vocabulary. He wore a navy baggy and long jacket. Again, we're using commas. So you can see how you can increase their SPAG, so their spelling, punctuation, and grammar each week, so that they're improving their writing. So again, from that Pobble 365, just those quick morning starters, that was easy for me to put up because I'm a lazy person. Then they're able to take that away and actually bring that into their writing at the end. And with the questions on your Pobble 365, that helps with creativity. As you probably know, at the beginning of the year, your children are sitting there and you show them a picture. What's the picture look like? It's blue, it's pretty. And then, so by constantly doing these starters, you're able to up-level that vocabulary. So Pobble 365 is obviously very widely known and does a fantastic job, but it's only the beginning of the Pobble journey. After that, what we can do is you can go on to Pobble and you can actually adapt those Pobble 365s. So you could look at SPAG focuses, for example. You can actually type into Pobble, I want to look at adverbials today, I want to look at relative clauses, I want to look at pronouns, and they'll be able to find you a lesson that is focused on that. It can also, you can change the date, change the age, so it's more relevant to your class, or maybe you have more of a higher ability class. And then they have lots and lots of slides there. You can also make it theme-based. For example, this is the Great Fire of London. Maybe you're learning that in history, or you're doing Vikings in year 4, or you're doing ancient Egypt. You can type those in and they create lessons that have slides surrounding that theme. So these are really good because they're cross-curricular. There's also the curriculum maps that Pobble have, and you can go along to the curriculum map. Especially yesterday, I was trying to change my medium-term plans for English, and I was thinking, okay, what curriculum, what grammar do I need to put in? So I went to the Pobble curriculum maps. I looked for the age range of the year 4s. I looked at the topics, and I looked at the grammar along the top, and it told me exactly which lesson to go to. And once you click on it, it took me to the lesson. So that is a really valuable resource as well. So if you're looking for lessons specific to grammar and your topic, you can use the curriculum maps. Once you've done this and you found a really good slide or a good lesson, you can have it up on the board. You could teach it as a soft start before your English lesson. You could make it a SPAG focus for the English lesson. You could even take the whole lesson to do one of these lessons. And then you can also share it. So for example, I'm not sure if people in Australia are in lockdown at the moment, but in Qatar, we've moved away from lockdown, but we have a 50% capacity in the class right now. So we have 50% of our children in class and 50% of the children are online, all at the same time. So I'm teaching the online children as I'm teaching the children in class at the same time. So it's a real juggle at the moment. So what's really good with this is I could share and actually send it to my children. So if I feel like I've got it up on the board, but I want my children at home to maybe go off and focus on it, I can send it to them and they can go through the tasks and they can do them and send it back. So just going from Pobble 365, you can see how we can really expand those lessons. So when you're sending the lesson, you can also edit the lesson. So if you found that some of the lesson slides weren't appropriate, you can take them out. Or if you wanted to add in something extra, you can add those in as well. You can save it for later. So you could maybe put this in your planning and then save it. You can also print it out. So maybe you wanted the stimulus in front of the children, you could print them out for them. And you can also send to other teachers. For example, when I was planning English before, I wanted all my starters for the lessons to be on one of the Pobble lessons. So I shared it with the other teachers. They were able to open those ones up on Pobble and share it with their class. Another thing we can also do on Pobble is create your own lessons. So I've actually put up some of the lessons that I've previously saved on my Pobble, and you can see there's a real variation. It goes from having the week 3 starters in the Shang Dynasty. So that was our cross-curricular, that was our history topic. And we also brought it into the English. I think it was maybe an information text. And so the starters I had on a Pobble slide. I then sent them to the other teachers in my team, and they were able to open them from there. I've also used this for P4C, so I don't know if any schools are using philosophy for children. Here we go, I've got a stimulus, you can see it there, and my question was, what's the secret? Is the secret to happiness, is it freedom? So I actually got the kids, can you write me a diary about whether you feel that you are free or not, or if that freedom gives you happiness. So the children were able, I sent it to the children, they wrote me a nice little diary entry and sent it back, and that was great for me, especially for having evidence for philosophy for children. So it's very good with cross-curricular. And also creating your own lessons, you can link them with different schemes, okay? So if you are using a different English scheme, Pobble also can link with those. So for example, I did a bit of talk for writing, where you've got your cold task. So I sent the cold task out to the children with YouTube videos linked up, with a hook, a picture and a stimulus. I had lots of different things on there, so the children could do their cold task, send it back, and I can have a look. A cold task, in case you don't know, is just a piece of writing that the children do before they have learned anything about that topic. So for example, if your children, if you were doing newspaper reports, I would say to the children, okay, can you write me a newspaper report today on the big bad wolf? He's coming into school, he's stealing people's lunch boxes, he might have eaten someone, can you tell us about it? But I don't tell them anything to do with what a newspaper is, and the children have a go at writing it. And then that cold task is then compared to their hot task at the end of all the learning and at the end of the unit. Okay, and then you can see here, so I also did a warning tale. It had the opening and the build up, and I sent out the dilemma, resolution, and ending. So for me, with Talk for Writing, what I did was I had the box it up on the lesson plan, and the children were able to look back at the box it up. They were also able to look at what a warning tale was like, and I can send them off to my children. So here you go, I've got 31 pupils were selected. I said what time they were going to get it, and I've clicked this button here to enable peer review, but I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in a minute. And then I can share that with my pupils, and their pupils can use their logins to access those slides. Some other things that you can add to your slides as well is learning objectives, success criteria. So you can see a little bit in the background there. I think I'm going to show you some in a minute anyway. You can add text, you can use lined or blank. And this is, again, if you've got, especially if you're teaching online at the moment, if you've got an interactive board, you can put lined paper up there and able to write directly onto it. You've got website links that the kids can click onto. You've got exemplar work, so you can take work that have been uploaded onto Pobble already from other children, and maybe you can discuss. So for example, I would put up a newspaper up and say to children, can you tell me what went really well here? What did the child do really well? And the children could come up with some examples. And then how could we make this even better? So it helps the children be able to analyze other people's work and think about the focus for their own. Again, resources, and Pobble has a huge resource bank that you can use. Exercises, YouTube videos, images, and word banks. So lots of different things that you can add in, and you can see you can add the slide there and create your own lessons. So some of the tools that Pobble gives us, so that we are going back to being those lazy people and stealing straight from Pobble. I have got word banks up here, so we can use word banks. You can see I've also printed them out for the children. As you can see, we've used adjectives here to describe feelings. So if I was, again, in the morning, if I had one of those starters up, the children, I could have that on some of the children's desks that would need those. You can also see here, I could have clicked it in fronted adverbials, and that really saves my time from sitting at home creating a word map of fronted adverbials. I can look straight into Pobble and type in whatever I'm looking for that day, and I can have those printed out. I can have it added to one of the lessons. I can have it sent to the children. Even like yesterday, for example, this is only my second week in school with the year 4s, so they needed a bit of a refresher on grammar. So we were doing verbs and adverbs, and we were linking a verb, trying to come up with a noun for the verb, and then coming up with an adverb. So straight away, I typed in adverb onto Pobble. I took a screenshot of it and I put it up on the board, or I just linked it up on the board, and the children were able to then write those down, and that would help them. You can also see here, there's a new setting on Pobble that is images. Really, really good for stimulus. If it's not in your English lesson, it might link into a history lesson or a P4C lesson, for example. We also have success criteria, so or WILFs, it depends what you use. So your children, if you type in a specific topic, again, newspaper reports, keep coming back to it, you can actually find out for that age range exactly what those children should be including. And if you put that linked onto the lesson, then when the children are doing the writing, for example, when they're doing their newspaper report, they can keep reflecting back to the success criteria. Okay, have I done a paragraph with a quote? Yes, I have. I can tick it off. Have I used a title? Yes, I have. I can tick it off. And you can see they actually go from expected, what the children should be expected to do, greater depth, so are they achieving higher, and working towards. So there are varied success criteria as well. So you can link those to your lessons. Or
Kelsey,
again,
just to say, you've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, if that's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And then you can link those onto your lessons as well. So when you send that away to the children, they can look at those too. Okay, I want to quickly just mention self and peer assessment. The children now can actually go on to Pobble once they've done their work. They can send it to a child randomly in their class, and they're able to highlight from that success criteria what they managed to do. So they can use different colors, they can write in there what they did well, they can send it back to the student who can then reply, and then they can send it on to me. So this is really good for self and peer assessment. I want to go through it quickly now, just in case. So the writing banks and the waggles. With the writing banks, you can put up children's work. So for example, I want to show you on here. My children do things where they get to vote for the best piece of work. So we put up a piece of work on Pobble, one a week, and they get a certificate, they get stickers, they get a lanyard. And the way that we vote for that, sometimes the teacher can vote for who gets to go up on Pobble, or sometimes the children get to vote themselves. So here I've got an example of where I had the books out on the tables, and they were going along and they were putting post-it notes for the one that they thought would go up on Pobble. And that's really nice because it's not always the best one. You can see someone's wrote most improved. So they would get to go up on Pobble. You can see from here, once they go up on Pobble, people can comment, and that gives them that purpose for their writing. You can print out other people's work, and then other children can comment and do a waggle finder, where they can say, oh, I found fronted adverbial here, I found an adjective there. And then finally, you can have the Pobble certificates, you can use a display, you can use lanyards to celebrate their work. So when they've got a good piece of writing, you can publish that on Pobble so that they become a published author. And finally, moderation. So you can create writing banks on Pobble and send them out to different teachers. So here's an example of one of ours. We had a girl in year 6. I was able to send that to all the teachers in year 6, plus some from different year groups, where we were able to comment and come up with a grade that we thought that she should have. And this is not just good for in your own year group, but it's also good for finding out, is it consistent and moving on progressively to the next year group. And also you can send it to other schools. So I had a school in Germany who sent me a message on Twitter asking if we could be moderation buddies. And I said, absolutely. So now I can actually see whether my work is the child in my class is a B. Is it the same as a child in year 4 in Germany who's a B? And making sure that we're consistent that way. So there are many different ways that I use Pobble. Like I said, is to make sure that planning, moderating, and teaching is easier, making our life that little bit easier. So if you want to find out more ideas, I have my Twitter handle there that you can write down. And if you have any questions or if you want me to share anything at all, please send me a message and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can.
Thanks so much, Chelsea. Yeah, I always put people under pressure when they attend our webinars to limit things to 15 minutes. I always say, don't feel you have to speak for 15 minutes, but yeah, as you'll hear from Chelsea and Rachel, they've got so many amazing ideas, which I know they're always really, really keen to share with you. So yeah, Chelsea crammed an awful lot into that session, which was fantastic. And what I plan to do once Rachel has done her presentation is actually to give you a little bit of a tour around the platform and share with you some of the things that Chelsea and Rachel mentioned. So I'll share with you very quickly how you can save a resource, how you can edit a resource, how you can share that with your children. And I'm also going to provide you with a link to our training platform, which includes a number of new short video clips. So again, if you want to go away and try out the publishing, try out the pupil tools, try out the moderation, there are some short introduction videos now in the training platform to support that. But as I say, I will give you a demo as part of today's session as well. Now, before we jump to that, and thanks again, Chelsea, that was really, really informative. Chelsea's working with a group of 8 and 9-year-old children at the moment in a British curriculum school. But as she mentioned, lots of the content can be adapted. Obviously, we do have lots of users in Australia and New Zealand as well. And it's great to see some of the comments coming through via the chat. So Rachel, I wonder if you're okay to turn your video on for me, if that's okay. Thanks, Rachel. So Rachel will tell you a little bit about her role and her Pobble journey. Yeah, thank you, Rachel, for joining us. I'm not sure what time it is in the day. I imagine it's mid-morning at the moment. Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, thank you for escaping school, or certainly escaping the classroom for a little while to come and support our event today. So Rachel, without further ado, I'll hand over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm going to do my sharing now. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it's about 10:30 in the morning here in the United Arab Emirates. Like Chelsea, I've been living abroad for the last 25 years, but brought up as an expat child as well. So originally from Scotland, and now find myself in the role as whole school principal. We've been with Pobble in my previous school when they were just starting up, and I've been with Pobble in my current school for 3 years. The wonderful thing with Pobble is that once you become part of that community, you really do see that it's not something that stands stagnant. It's constantly changing and upgrading. And the most important thing for me as a digital platform is they listen. So when we've been, like Chelsea said, when we've been looking for a cheating, lazy version of something, Pobble will create it. For me, it's the impact that it can have. It gives children a real purpose for writing. It's a wonderful community to be part of. And again, like Chelsea said in her previous presentation, the amount of shout outs on Twitter or on LinkedIn, and people that send you a message and say, oh, I've got somebody that's really struggling with writing. And a little comment on their writing on Pobble would go so far, because it's great. Our children here in the United Arab Emirates log in and they find that people have commented from the UK, from France, from Tokyo in Japan, and it really gives them that sense of additional pride. The resources are top quality, and there's nothing that Pobble puts out that hasn't really been well thought of and really polished product. Moderation, I know Simon's going to talk to you about that. It's been a fantastic tool. And I know a lot of us love to have to sort of put those books together and drive around to a school, maybe half an hour, and have a moderation meeting, either in a small cluster group or in individual sort of school groups. And the moderation tool, particularly in the last 2 years when we've been in lockdown and really struggled to do that moderation, it's been a lifeline for us. But I know that will be talked about later on. Pobble supports our planning, it's time saving, and I think the great thing for me is it's ongoing CPD for all of my staff. They've got drop-in sessions, the resources, I know Anna is constantly doing blogging, and so it's an ongoing CPD for really richness in primary writing. Now, a waggle, obviously, is a real term that we use in British curriculum, what a good one looks like. And I think for me, a waggle is something that we use in two very clear ways with Pobble. We have them for the teachers, obviously, and we have them for the children. For the staff, it really helps with planning ideas, benchmarking where that child should be in that year group with writing, moderation, obviously, and it's a great way for feedback. For children, we like to say that they magpie rather than steal, but it's a wonderful way for them to have a little look at other children's writing. Now, you know, sort of 8-9 years ago, when I was actually in the classroom, I would be photocopying different pages from books and pop them out on the table for children to have a little look through with the same idea of a waggle. But there is something absolutely electrifying for children to be able to steal ideas from other children. And that waggle idea where children can pop in and search for children's writing their own age in their same topic and really be able to have a good read of other people's writing that is relevant to them, rather than thinking, I can never write like that. That's a published adult author. The waggles really help see better progress. We've got challenge element for those that are writing above their year group standard. They're able to dip into older year groups and sort of steal that language and structure that they might not have actually been taught in their class yet. And again, as always, it saves us time. High impact lessons, and like I said, you know, Pobble is a product that continues to be absolute premium. There's nothing that they don't produce that isn't just a, oh, that will work, that will work, that will work, that's great quality. It's a bank of lessons, lesson starters. I love the fact that there's always current events that are dropped in there as well. It's a wonderful thing. We don't really do holiday homework, but we always have parents asking for things. And so it's a wonderful thing for people to be able to dip in and dip out of, and that's either children or parents. There's personal choice element, and like I said, it's great for self-selecting for homework. We'll quite often say to children, you know, this week it's a Pobble piece. Whatever you would like to do, you know the platform, go and find yourself a piece of homework to do. We've had children come in and say, oh, well, we found this year 2 piece of writing and I'm in year 5 and I've totally up-leveled it, whilst another child might have gone into Pobble News and they've done their own recount of events. So it's a great, really, really sort of diverse product to use. Supporting the community, I'm a firm believer in digital platforms and using it, but I always think that it's got to be a product that supports us. It's not just pay the bill and you get something. It's got to be there the whole year round. And as a community, not just the Pobble people at head office, but as a community, we really are there to support each other. People listen, people shout out. And like I said, it's not just about writing lessons. The non-screen activities that started are just fabulous resource. Waggle finders, writing maps, and like I said, on social media, on the Edu Twitter sort of side and LinkedIn, it really is a fabulous sort of group. And although now we're spread all over the world, it really is something that feels quite intimate as a community of educators. I've got a favourite phrase that certainly people that work alongside me know, that no man is an island. And I firmly believe that no edutech should be either. And for us, Pobble is a perfect partner for so many different platforms. Now, my job as a school leader obviously is to go in and make sure that, you know, staff feel supported. We don't have formal observations anymore in school, but we have a lot of learning walks. And so these are a few things that I've seen in the last term. I've not been that cruel. We've only been back for a week here, so the learning walks don't kick in till next week. But these are some lessons that I came across at the end of the last academic year. So the power of the P's. This was using Pobble, Padlet and iPads. A fantastic lesson. You know, the children, we had half children in school, half online. And so by using Padlet, they generated a word bank together as a class. And that really was that collaborative learning. Then using Pobble, actually this time the teacher had already pre-selected text and extracts from differentiated samples. And then the children used their own Waggle finder and started to magpie different vocabulary, different sentence starters, etc. Then, of course, came the actual write. The children wrote their own mousetrap writing, published it on Pobble, and then feedback was given by their peers. Just as Chelsea had said, we like to do random peer selection and for feedback, etc. And particularly because we had that online and face-to-face, it worked a treat. Another wonderful lesson that I saw, and we've recreated this sort of structure for a lesson over and over, was using virtual school visits, Pobble and Chatterpix. In this one, we had Thomas Fariner come in and obviously as a Zoom meeting and give us a really big hook about the Great Fire of London and how it had started and how he was in a lot of bother. We then went into, or the teacher did, went in to search for vocabulary and further information and using the idea of a newspaper. So they were able to search newspapers for structure and then they honed in on newspapers for the Great Fire of London. After that, they created their own newspaper report and published it on Pobble. Finally, they then used Chatterpix to then create the eyewitness account that had been used in the Pobble writing and created that moving mouth on an image. So a really nice sort of combination to use for one key objective. I think the great thing, children can anytime, anywhere. And I think the wonderful thing that we've encouraged children to do is, you know, obviously we want screen breaks, but we've had quite a few parents that have told us that bedtime reading, that children have actually taken to reading Pobble stories. And I think it is going back to that flavour of children being inspired by other children, and that sort of a book is so foreign to them to be a published author as an actual novel, but to be a published author on Pobble is absolutely a real experience because all the children in my school are published authors. And so a lot of children, I mean, we can find them sort of in free reading time or at home, and they actually choose to just skim through and read different children's writing. And it's really, really helped lift our writing attainment and progress, absolutely. Recognition and praise. I mean, obviously we all love that in school and we're all naturals at it. We've taken it to having a Pobble wall. So not only do they get published, they also get their the opportunity to have their writing on our Pobble wall for a set amount of time. Again, as Chelsea and Simon and Anna will explain, there's a huge amount of top quality resources from the lanyards to the certificates. Obviously having your work on Pobble and having those lovely comments drip in from people that you do know within the school as staff or myself as school leader, but also their friends. But it is that little bit when somebody from a different school or a different country sort of makes a comment on the writing that the children are just ecstatic. We've taken it again further, we've got little sort of Insta frames when their work goes on the wall, they come and have that popped in. All of that combination has really, and we have the proof in the data to prove it, that we've had accelerated progress and attainment in writing. It's helped us with paying attention to writing targets, something that often seem to get going and then slip away. It's a wonderful personal portfolio to track, and certainly as a school leader, having to evidence that progress and attainment, Pobble absolutely knocks it out of the park for me. supporting writing all over the world. I know the majority of you are in Australia and New Zealand. For us, we obviously have writing in English at a British curriculum school, but we also use Pobble for our Arabic writing as well. And so if you've got the situation that you're doing a second language, it works equally as well for another language. And again, we've had that training for our Arabic team. Our French team are thinking that they want to get on board now. So it actually supports writing in all languages. Just to sort of round up, you know, if you haven't been part of the Pobble community, or you've just been on that 365 element, you know, the praise involving the whole community near and far is a key for me. For me, the cost, obviously, unfortunately, as a school leader, is always a factor. And although I want everything available, it's not possible. It's very reasonable for all that you get. You don't just get that platform, you get the resources, you get that ongoing CPD and that community aspect. It's a piece of the puzzle, a reason for writing, way to compare, opportunity for the children and staff, and supports planning and moderation. So it's a real important part of that jigsaw for me. Balance, and again, Chelsea mentioned on this with her quote in the beginning, it's time spent, you know, saving time for planning, writing, creating resources. You know, at any opportunity, teachers and school leaders want to be able to give time back. We know how incredibly hard everybody is working, especially under the current climate. And so having that balance of removing some of the time that they might have had to spend in the past is a huge plus point for me. Again, it supports writing targets. And I suppose with certain ed tech, you know, you think it's going to be great, and then when you get it, it's far more complicated, and then you don't start to use it. Pobble is so easy to use. So teachers, children and parents really use it often because it's a simple format, it's clear, and I think because of that, we've maintained the amount that we've used it. And that's it from me. I'm hoping I stayed in under time. I will pass you back to Simon.
Thank you, Rachel. That was perfect timing. It's as if you've done that for us before, Rachel. Thank you so much. So yeah, thank you. That really great overview. And I think what really jumps out from both Chelsea's and Rachel's presentations is, yeah, the vast amount of opportunities for the platform. And I guess in the 15 minutes that are left, it would almost be impossible for me to show you everything that Chelsea and Rachel have covered. So what I'm going to try and do for the next sort of 10 minutes before I sort of finish off by discussing next steps and how you can join the community too, is just to live demo a few of the features that Rachel and Chelsea focused on, while also reflecting on some of the questions and comments that have come through via the chat. Now, there are some resources that were mentioned, like the non-screen activities. There was the blog, where I know Anna is posting links in the chat to help you as well. So if I don't necessarily cover it in my demo, do also make sure before you finish the session that you do go back to the chat and do check out some of the links that Anna is about to share with you. So I'm going to share my screen, everybody. I've already logged into Pobble. And for those of you who haven't logged in recently, I'm in the resources area of the platform. Now, this is an area that Chelsea and Rachel have talked a lot about over the last half an hour or so. Really just to say, the best way you can learn about this content is to go and have a good play around and a good search. You can try searching by age groups, by keywords. My actual preference when I'm training schools that are new to Pobble is to take them through the tabs, which I'm hovering over now. We've got the Pobble 365 pictures. Those of you that have transitioned across quite recently requested thumbnail images. They're now all there on Pobble 365. So that if you click onto an image, you can save that to use at a later date, or you can go through some of the different sharing options. And I'm going to talk about them again briefly in a second. So again, do go through, do have a look at that content. The lessons tab, I think Chelsea touched quite a lot upon this within her presentation. There is lots and lots of different types of content in there. We have Pobble 365 Plus, where we've added our own extra slides to a presentation. So for example, word banks, we've added examples of children's works. That's almost taking Pobble 365 to the next step. We have our themed-based presentations. These are all themes and topics suggested by the community. We do try to make them as worldwide as possible, but we are adding to them all of the time. They are available for children age 5 all the way through to children age 11. It really is a case of finding something that's right for your class. These are much longer presentations, something you would maybe use over the course of a whole week, and they include a number of different activities, as Chelsea mentioned. Pobble News, perfect for homework, something real, usually aligning with your non-fiction. Quick writes, exactly as they say, an opportunity to just get the children to write. And our lesson starters, which are much more objective focused. And the key thing, as mentioned with everything, is that they can be saved and they can be edited. Very quickly, before I show you how those lessons can be shared, we have hundreds of thousands of pieces of children's writing, currently available via the example texts or the writing bank feature at the top of the screen. Now, within our Pobble lessons, we make success criteria to support some of our sessions. We also provide templates, but again, because we're working with schools all around the world, what's right for your year 5 and 6 or age 5 and 6 children, might be slightly different to what we're expecting from some of the children here in England, as an example. So really importantly, all of the success criteria can be edited and adapted as well. Very similarly, the word banks, we know that supporting children, particularly who find writing challenging, giving them vocabulary to help them is really important. So we've made some word banks, but as you saw with Chelsea's presentation, you can easily add a word bank to a session as well. And then finally, thousands and thousands of new images linked to popular topics, which again, you can use as a stimulus for your sessions. Now, if I quickly jump into the saved resources, I'm going to open up one of my lessons. And again, those of you who haven't delved this far yet, when you get into a Pobble presentation, the easiest option is you just present it on a screen. You don't change anything, you're happy as it is, and just sharing. But as a subscriber to Pobble, we give you the power to do more. We allow you to edit any of the slides by clicking on to edit content. You can change the text. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can add to the content. So as Chelsea mentioned, you can make word banks, you can add examples of children's work. The success criteria slide is amazing in that you can add your own criteria. You can even go to pick from suggestions. You might be doing narrative. You might want some suggestions as to what to put in that success criteria. Our website will suggest things for you. And by clicking on add, it will turn it into that writing checklist for your children. You can even rename it writing checklist if that's your preferred language. So there's lots and lots of things you can do within that session. If you go to configure, you might find a lesson that's designed for 8 and 9-year-olds. And actually in your school, it's more relevant for a group of 10 and 11-year-olds. You can also change the age on that front cover as well. It really is now your session for you to do with it what you would like. Now, as mentioned a couple of times, you can share the Pobble content in other ways. And I'm very mindful at the moment that some of you are teaching remotely. Some of your children might be returning. Like Chelsea, you might have some children at home and at school. So alongside present, you'll see that for every Pobble lesson, there are different ways that the content can be shared. You can print, you can create a link. So if you're using tools like Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Seesaw, you can create a link to a Pobble lesson to share with the children through a different educational platform. Lots of you might be part of a job share. You might have colleagues that you work closely with. You can easily share a lesson via an email with another teacher. And then finally, and I'm going to spend 2 minutes demoing this to you, you can click and send a lesson to your pupils. Now, in order to do this, it takes about 5 minutes to set up your pupils in Pobble. They're all given a 4-digit passcode. And you can then decide whether to send that lesson to a group or to individual pupils or a custom group that you can again easily make in the platform. You then select the pupils you want to send that lesson to, when you want that lesson to arrive, and then you click on share. If you are interested in the peer review option that Chelsea talked about, which allows children to provide each other with feedback in an automated way, you can also enable that peer review at this point as well. Now I'm going to quickly jump in as a pupil, and sorry for going 100 miles an hour, everybody. I'm now logged into the platform as Eva. Now what's brilliant with our pupil logins is if you send a lesson to a pupil, it arrives in their My Lessons area. The child can click on the lesson. They can see all of the slides, and remember, they can be the adapted versions of the slides. They can see their writing checklist, and when they are ready, they can click on Add Work, which could be taking a photograph, because of course lots of children are still writing in books, or it could be I want to type my work up. The children then do their typing. What's really nice is that we always make the slides available while they're typing, because again, we know that children like to go back to the vocabulary. They like to go back to some of the word banks to help them when they are writing. It's always there on the right-hand side available to support them. And hopefully this is where you can see we really are a primary writing focused platform. Now, what really makes us different from other tools that you might be using at the moment is if I now click review, instead of just sending the work to the teacher, we build in that review phase. Now that could be annotating their writing, that could be leaving a comment about their writing for their teacher, or probably my favorite piece of the platform, I can also ask the children to do a self-review of their work. We know that children will then forget things, so we always then give them the power to go back and edit their work before they send it to the teacher. And again, I'll show you very quickly in a moment where that writing will arrive. Now, very quickly, what's also really nice about the pupil logins is, and I think Rachel mentioned this, there are sessions in there that we have loaded in for the children already. So all of Pobble 365, as an example, already sits in the pupils area. They can choose their own image, they can look at the tasks, and then when they are ready, they can also add work, select a teacher, and send that work back to you as well. So again, if you are in remote learning at the moment, those pupil logins and that independent side of Pobble, particularly with children maybe 7 and above, is really, really powerful. Alongside that, and again, really unique to Pobble, we give the children also access to hundreds of thousands of pieces of writing. Now that can be writing that they access from your school, their own writing, or as Chelsea and Rachel mentioned, being able to look at writing from around the world as well. We do support them with leaving comments. That's done in a really structured way. And all of the comments are moderated by the Pobble team before they go live. So again, thinking about your workload, peace of mind, they are the types of pain points that we do try to address. So if your children are leaving hundreds of comments, we will be checking them. It isn't your responsibility to do that. So I'm going to go back finally into the teacher interface before I talk about next steps. So within the teacher area, you will have what's called the My Mark book. And it's really from here that you can do two things. You can approve work. So any work coming through from the children via the pupil tools that we've just demonstrated will appear in the Mark book. Sorry, that's taken a little while to load up on the screen. You can, of course, review their work. You can send it back with feedback. We are looking at the moment of improving that slightly to be able to have things like verbal feedback when you provide it to the children, and then you can approve their writing as well. You can also upload work if your children aren't using the pupil logins. And again, the really important reason for that is that you might, as well as wanting to approve that work, you might want to do, which Rachel and Chelsea are doing, also turn the child into a published author. So just to clarify, any work that you approve is saved. It goes into a pupil folder. Any work that you click on yes would then go into a public publishing space as well. The work is anonymous outside of your school community. Pobble really is a safe way of celebrating your children's writing. And then finally, to quickly show you where that writing ends up, before I talk to you about the next steps, all of the pupils that are added to the platform And if you haven't yet done that, do click on the Add Pupils. We will guide you through those steps really quickly. All of the pupils' work is then saved into an evidence bank. And it's from here, and I'm not going to demonstrate it today, it's from here that our online moderation tool kicks in, because I can select a collection of writing, I can create an online folder, I can share it with other teachers in other schools as an assessment exercise. And I believe, certainly speaking to some teachers in Australia, it is good practice to review children's writing together to support your assessment judgment. We factor all of that in online. And to find out more about that, I would encourage you to go to the Moderate Online area of Pobble. And within here, there is a short video explaining exactly how that online moderation piece works and how you can make your own folders, share them with colleagues, etc. The final screen I want to share with you is the publishing. And again, if you do decide to publish, I'll just open up my little girl's school. I can just hear her in the background, which is Panel. So every week at Panel, they celebrate writing from their children. These are the published pieces. I think in Chelsea's school, it's 1 pupil per child per week. These are the children that are recognised. They get the certificates, they get their lanyards. It really is a special part of the Pobble platform. So that, everybody, is a really, really quick tour of what we do. And I will guide you in a second towards our training platform, where I do go through all of that in much, much more detail if you are interested in any of the particular aspects that I looked at today. So I'm just going to open up my session. Bear with me a second. And just quickly take you through. And it's these notes that I am going to share with you. Okay. Now, what I've put into my presentation that we'll share out is really just some ideas to take forward. What might we think about using from Pobble on a daily basis? Pobble 365, our quick writes. It might be that your goal is to develop children's writing stamina. And some of the things that we've talked about today absolutely will support that. Moving a little bit further forward, some of the ideas that Rachel and Chelsea discussed around homework, around publishing, about using the themed units for a longer piece of children's work. And that's where you might begin to think about using Pobble for developing more of a weekly routine. Moving a little bit further forward, how might Pobble be used on a termly basis? Lots of our schools do writing days. Lots of our schools use the online moderation tool to make their writing assessment judgments. So again, a couple of ideas there as to how you might think about introducing Pobble longer term, particularly if you're a school leader joining the call today. And then finally, really a reminder that Pobble can be used to support your planning in a number of ways. There are the curriculum maps, there are the hundreds of thousands of examples of children's work, there are writing checklists. I think Anna's currently adding our writing pads into the featured lessons of Pobble, and the Pobble blog is absolutely amazing. If you've not yet seen the link in the chat, do check it out. Brilliant teachers like Chelsea and Rachel sharing great ideas. If you're joining from as a teacher that teaches very young children, I would certainly recommend, for example, this particular post here. So do check out the blog. And then finally, thinking then about next steps. So as part of this presentation, I'm going to link you to a couple of useful pages in the platform. Number one, if you click onto this particular page, it will take you to the Pobble pricing page, and that's always available at the top of the screen. Now, I'm currently joining from the UK, so all of the prices do appear in UK pounds. If technology is working, those prices should be converted into your local currency. And if you click onto the pricing page, you'll see there are a couple of different options. There are individual accounts. So if you are joining as an individual teacher and you're keen to access more of the premium features, you can see there is a silver and a gold option. Most of you at the moment will be free users. If you're joining today thinking, I need this for all of my teachers, this is where you need to click onto the schools tab. And again, you can see those different subscription options are outlined. And I'm just going to get Anna very quickly in the chat. One of the things that we're putting in place for you if you're thinking about joining as a school is we have created a webinar discount code for you. But again, if you do have any problems with that, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's really easy to sign up online. As mentioned, you can do that as an individual, monthly, annually, or to be more cost effective and obviously to really think about whole school improvement in writing, you might want to consider those school options instead. Okay. Now, the final page I want to direct you towards, as mentioned, is our training page. Now, this only went live yesterday. And what I've tried to do with the training page is, number one, at the very top, I've provided 5 short videos, no longer than 10 minutes, about 4 of the key areas we've discussed today. Resources, and it goes into more detail about editing and sharing. The pupil tools, so again, how can you send a lesson to your pupils? How can they send work back to you? How can you check where they are up to? The publishing, again, you can probably tell we're all very passionate about this side of Pobble, but again, if you're interested in exploring a bit further how schools do this, do check out that video. And then finally, that moderation session as well. And again, further down the page, the opportunity to join some live webinars. And again, we are trying to adapt our times so that we do make them available in other parts of the world at reasonable hours of the day as well. So I hope everybody that covers everything you need from Pobble. I hope that it's given you a good enough insight into the work that we do. A really big thank you again from me to Chelsea and to Rachel for everything that they've contributed to today's session. We will send this presentation out to you alongside a short email from Anna, just to explain how I will do that so you can see how the technology works. If I go share my lesson and I share with a teacher, I'm going to then share this with all of you. I'm going to click in and add an email, and I will send an invitation. You will get an email notification that Simon's presentation has arrived. And then if you go into your resources area, as I'm demonstrating now, into your saved resources, you will see a shared with me tab. And within the shared with me tab will then be the presentation from today. So it allows you to see it in Pobble. Those top tips will always be there, and those links to that pricing page, etc., will be available as well. I hope, I'm going to stop sharing at that point. I hope that was useful, everyone. We do really appreciate so many people, the absolute other end of the world, joining us. I'm certainly proud as a Pobbler knowing that hundreds and hundreds of you have joined us today. We'd love to welcome more Australian and New Zealand schools to Pobble. It's certainly a growing area for us, but it's very new in terms of Pobble schools. So we'd love you to start leading the way as the first Pobble schools in New Zealand and Australia, or teachers using the platform. And in time, we'd love some of you to become Pobble champions like Rachel and Chelsea as well, and contribute to future sessions that we run in your region. I will leave my contact details in the chat in terms of social media. Chelsea, Rachel, I'm sure you want to just say a very quick bye and thank you to everybody as well. But we really do appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to hopefully welcoming lots of you to the Pobble community soon. Thanks again, Rachel. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you. Lovely to talk to all of you. And if any of you need any help persuading from the school leader side, always happy to dip in and pitch my sort of principal hat to anyone that needs a little push.
I was just going to say as well, like, if you've got any questions, please message me on Twitter. I know I responded to quite a few last time, and we set up some good partnerships with the school. So any ideas that you have as well. And also, if you just have your Pobble already set up and you can send me your email, I can send you across lessons that I've made or anything interested, and you can see how you might adapt a lesson to suit your own as well.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time. And we will be sending out a recording of the session as well. Thanks, Chelsea. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye-bye. Enjoy your day.